Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where you meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello and welcome back, Shipping Podcast lovers. This is the 54th episode of the Shipping Podcast. I'm so happy that you are listening. I attended the Vista International AGM and Conference in the United States in November. That was held for the first time ever on board a cruise vessel, Holland America Line Koningsdam. We cruised from Port Everglade in Florida to the Bahamas. And when we reached the Bahamas, we met with the ladies that has just started Vista Bahamas. There was a ceremony and there was some music playing, and we started to dance. And that is what you will hear between now and the interview. So I met with 3 ladies on board the ship. Well, I met with a lot of ladies, but I had the time to sit down with 3 ladies and interview them. In this episode, you will be meeting Lindsay, not the same Lindsay as in the last episode, but this is Lindsay Malen. She's the Director of Business Development for Future Care in New York. Future Care is an international medical management and cost containment service provider to the maritime industry. Lindsay will explain more about what she does, what her company does, but I started to think about what happens when you fall ill at sea. Either you are a crew member or you are a passenger. That is not something you really want to think about. But after having listening to Lindsay, I think you feel even more safe than you did before. So this is the Bermuda music for you.
I am Lindsay Malen. I'm the Director of Business Development for Future Care, Inc. Future Care is a medical case management and cost containment firm for the maritime industry specifically. So that means that we are providing at sea for over 700 vessels telemedical advice, onboard medical treatment, as well as landside direction of medical care. Therefore, when a vessel comes into a port anywhere around the world, we are monitoring that crew member's treatment. If it is a larger case, we're handling it with nurse case managers or physician advisors. If it is a smaller case, we're just focusing on getting a fit for duty status and returning that person to work, or maximum medical recovery in a larger case and returning them to their home country. So it's a very specialized sector of the maritime industry.
How did you enter the maritime industry?
Well, it's a funny story because in university, I didn't go to a maritime academy like so many you meet or start in the military. I studied psychology and chemistry and thought I wanted to maybe be a therapist, but I took a year off after university to be a ski bum, and at the end I blew out my knee, and I went home to New York with my tail between my legs, and my mother said to me, if you're going to recover from home, you need to work. So this company had been formed, Future Care, and I trained as a first responder. And from bed, I answered the first response call line. And I started engaging with the captains, with the chief engineers, understanding an industry that I knew nothing about. I had no idea how pretty much every item we utilize on a daily basis, from our cell phones to a glass to a car, how it got to us in the United States or how it got from the United States, and who it takes to get it there. So I started working in this company called Future Care and worked my way up, eventually becoming their Director of Business Development and opening their international division in Athens, Greece. Now they're operating out of Greece, Manila, Philippines, as well as New York City as their headquarters.
So what is the most common thing that you get in contact with the captains, and what are the injuries that you are?
So it's interesting because what we've realized is there's been a shift from larger injuries such as slip and fall accidents, because there is such a focus on safety, to more illnesses. And what Future Care does is they actually monitor and track the crew member claims by vessel, by ship owner, by type of operator, by position, rank, etc., which has led us to have a very large database, go back and review at the end of the year, what are the biggest types of casualties that we see? What is the big money claims? we're seeing a lot more cardiac issues on board because we have a crew shortage right now. And so we see that ship owners tend to try to do their best to retain their crew. And so this may lead them to have older captains, for example. And they don't want to say, even though they have a pre-existing condition, you can't come back on board. So what they'll do is they'll enlist future care to monitor that captain's treatment while he is on board. So we know, instead of hiding that he has an illness, we know that we can actually monitor it openly instead. Then, of course, we're seeing, in terms of larger cost claims, cancer and things of that sort. When we look at injuries, lots of eye claims, and that's just lack of safety gear. And that's something that then could be reiterated to the ship owner or ship manager, where they can go out and then they can train their crew again on eye goggle safety. So it's certain things like that. But we've seen everything. We've seen everything from amputated legs between a ship and a vessel to full-blown HIV. And so it's a very interesting sector, because you're mixing medical and maritime, and two things that are multifaceted and time frame based.
And you use telematics.
We do. So we have a panel of physician advisors and a 24-hour call line, and we provide telemedical advice at sea. We also utilize pieces of equipment that we can sell to the ship that allow the ship's captain or their medical officer, who sometimes is the chief engineer or chief mate, to monitor that crew members, give them an EKG, give them an eye exam, use satellite services to actually see that crew member face to face. And sometimes we can mitigate an illness or injury on board and never have to see a landside physician, which can save the ship owner lots of money as well as time. We have lots of avoidance of vessel deviations by using the telemedical advice. As well, under the new MLC, Maritime Labor Convention Law of 2006, ship owners are now required to have a telemedical advice service. So future care is top in that.
It's interesting.
It is very interesting, and it's very thrilling. I think our physicians also, they come from different walks of life as well, but it's interesting for them to triage a different type of medical care, because you're very much isolated. So here we are sitting on board a cruise ship that actually has a physician, luckily. But if it does become something severe, they'll utilize one of future care's specialists, whether that is a dermatologist or an ophthalmologist or a cardiac specialist.
I didn't even know that they existed.
Exactly. Well, many people don't, but what we have at Future Care is called a Caring for the Crew program, and it's something that was developed by a woman named Christina DeSimone, who also happens to be my mother, so we're a family-run company. She's certainly an innovator in the industry, bringing this case management technique to the maritime world. So we started with U.S. vessels, but now we're working with a global fleet, and we're providing this service not just in the United States, but on a global level as well. So although the United States is a for-profit healthcare system, and probably, sad to say, one of the most corrupt and expensive healthcare systems, internationally, medical care is becoming more expensive as well. Europe and South America, we find also to be high cost. Certain places that you have fraudulent charges. So what we'll do is monitor the crew member's treatment from the onset of illness or injury all the way till, again, he's fit for duty or maximum medical recovery. And we are only approving the specified needed treatment with one of our care managers, whether that's a nurse, a physician, or a first responder, depending on the severity. So what that allows us to do is make sure that the appropriate costs are charged from the onset, as opposed to just a bill review and auditing technique, which is something that we still do, and that's a big part of our company as well, because many times a ship owner won't even realize that their crew member ended up in so-and-so facility in the port of New Orleans because he got taken off the boat, the port agent drove him to the left, he got kept overnight. It turned out it was nothing, and they have a $15,000, $20,000 medical bill, plus they couldn't sail because a chief engineer was being held in the hospital. So those vessel delays are over $25,000 a day as well. It's interesting.
So what are the biggest changes that you have seen within the maritime industry?
Well, I've been in the industry for about 12 years personally, and I think that it is the crew shortage that we've seen. So in terms of our specific company, so we've seen a change in ship owners' perspective, whereas their crew is not as replaceable. They're doing more. They're putting money into training. They want to retain their crew. They want to offer them additional services. We've seen that in lots of different ways that we try and make a crew member's life on board better. What I've seen personally as well in the industry is more women. That's why I'm attending the WISTA, Women in International Shipping and Trading Association conference. We've learned about more women on board, just on commercial vessels, as well as more women in the industry. Future Care itself is a woman-owned minority business, and most of our senior level positions are filled by women. So we're lucky in that regard. And I just think that the focus on safety gets stronger and stronger, especially as the world watches in terms of media attention, but just social media and the way that we can easily communicate. So a ship owner's weaknesses are exposed. And if they are not doing right by their crew member or doing right by the environment, that is going to be put out there to the world pretty quickly. So it can't be avoided. I think you see every type of ship owner there is, but these days the world is forcing them to be more safe.
Yes, I agree. But how do you see the future of shipping in general?
Well, for me, the shipping industry is something that will never go away. It's still the most cost-effective, environmentally safe mode of transportation. I always encourage the next generation to join the maritime industry because, to me, again, it's an industry that will always be there. We'll always have ships. It will always need crew to operate it. And there's so many sides to the industry that one can be involved, from technical to even like we are in cruise ship hospitality. I started a group called the Young Shipping Professionals of Texas to try and encourage young people to join the maritime industry. We've recently joined a larger international group called Young Ship and reformed under Young Ship Texas as the first U.S. chapter of Young Ship International. So we not only encourage women, but young people to join the industry, and that's absolutely what we need. There's a huge gap in generation in maritime, and so we really need the young people to come and join us as much as possible.
So how do we become more visible as an industry?
Well, I think this is a great example, podcasts. I mean, just finding out about this was so interesting to me because I have also been in ship salvage for many years. And I remember when I went to my first American Salvage Association conference, which is sort of our U.S. union group, so to speak, or the group that takes us to the White House. I raised my hand and I said, how do we reform ourselves from looking like pirates? How do we change ourselves? How do we reform the structure of the maritime industry on the whole, that we're not only in the media when we spill oil, but we're in the media when we're providing jobs, when we're environmentally friendly, when we're creating the first LNG powered cruise ship, things of that sort. So I think it's podcasts. I think it's social networking. I think it's more visibility, which traditionally ship owners and shipping companies have been afraid of because we've been such a target for large fines, taxes, whatever it may be in legislation. I think it's that we can't be afraid. We need to put ourselves out there, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's much more good than there is bad.
I agree with you. I agree.
Okay. So I'm so happy to know that you're doing this, and I'll be tuning into your podcast often.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Who would you be interested in listening to? Who do you think I should interview the next?
At the WISTA conference, there's such a diverse group of women. It really shows you how many sides to this industry there are. The fact that you have ship owners on board, you have maritime attorneys on board, you have younger people in shipping, older people in shipping, etc. I can't even say who would be next because there are so many cool women here. But I would say, just try and get a taste of everything as much as possible. Let the world know that maybe if you're going to be a lawyer, you want to be a maritime lawyer. Maybe if you want to be an engineer, you can be an engineer on ships. If you want to be an architect, you can be an naval architect. There's so much to do. If you want to be an environmentalist, you can help get our industry to up its standards of safety. It's just, the options are endless. You could really be anything in this industry, and the industry is addictive because every day is different. Every issue is different. In future care, every case is different. In salvage, every case is different. And we're constantly adjusting. Plus, it makes the world so small. I've had the opportunity to be in almost every country in my short time, which is 12 years in the industry. And a group like WISTA makes it, again, even smaller. We were talking in just the session about what does WISTA do for your career, for women in shipping. Well, there's been many times where I go to a new country. I've never met this person, but I look up who the local WISTA chapter is run by, and they're bored, and I give a call and I say, would you be available for lunch or a drink, or is it possibly a potential client, and go and meet with them. And, it just makes you feel at home even when you're across the world. It's fabulous.
I think also I learn the most when I attend WISTA meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Because I learn so many new things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, WISTA really gives you a full spectrum of the industry plus that global outlook. And it's obviously progressive because it's encouraging women in maritime. It's also encouraging young people in maritime. I went to my first WISTA conference in 2005. My first international conference was held in New Orleans in 2008. And I remember just saying, wow, I'm never going to miss one of these again, because this just gives you a chance to network and then have a broader support that I can't even explain. On a personal perspective, my husband passed away in January. He was also in the maritime industry. He was a salvage master, and he ran the world's largest salvage company at the time, Titan Salvage. He was retired when he did pass away. It was an accident. WISTA came and supported me, as did the maritime industry, like I can't imagine any other industry would, because everybody knew us so personally that it affected them on a personal level. So WISTA, their international group, sent me letters and flowers and things for our child, our daughter. Personal letters were written about how Rich had affected each person's life. We received telegrams from around the world. He was the one who obtained the contract to lift the Costa Concordia, and the head of Costa Cruises had sent us a telegram. I had never seen a telegram in my life before, just to send his condolences. But that just showed you what type of industry it was. They created a college fund for my daughter that will be a big significance when she is ready to go to school. And so you don't, in maritime, the day doesn't end at 5 o'clock because it's 24 hours a day. And so the people that you work with become friends, they become your family, and that's what WISTA is as well.
I agree.
Yes. So we're lucky.
Yes, we are. Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased. Anything I can do to support it.
Thank you, Lindsay. It was interesting to hear what you do with your everyday job. And I can hear that you're passionate about the industry and that you have really found the place for you to be. There are so many cool women in the shipping industry, and I feel lucky that they trust me to display them to the world. I know that some of them have never been asked before to speak or deliver a keynote, and that is probably not because they are not good speakers or that they have nothing to say. They are at least as good as the speakers that I have been listening to before. There are very few women on the list of internationally recognized speakers at conferences, and I think that is something we need to change. I am doing my best. At the moment, I've got 45% of my guests are women, but come summer, and I would have interviewed more women than men in the shipping industry. Imagine that. I think that the next thing we need to change is the maritime event circus. Speaking about autonomous and remote control things, every gathering that I attend, and I am a pro, I promise you, I have been to a lot of events and seminars and conferences within the maritime industry. All of them are either controlled by a large organization, which is in for it to earn money, of course, or a very small organization with no funding at all. Maybe this is where we should start a disruption innovation circle. I am doing my part. What are you doing? I leave you with a question. I have to run. Until the next time, when you will meet the third lady that I sat down with on board the Koningsdam. Until then, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast where the maritime professionals are talking about their everyday job.